All right, today we're going to solve a fascinating medical mystery. It all kicks off with a single suspicious image and a question that could change a young person's life forever.
So picture this. You're looking at an X-ray of a teenager, and suddenly you see something that just shouldn't be there, a faint but really distinct shadow on the bone. What on earth is it, and what does it mean? Well, this is exactly where our investigation begins.
Our very first clue is that shadow. But to really understand what it's telling us, we need to know what we're looking for.
Turns out our culprit has a name: chondroblastoma. Now, in simple terms, it's a pretty rare type of tumor that's made up of cartilage cells that just haven't fully matured yet. But the real question is, how does that show up on an X-ray?
Okay, so on the scan, this tumor shows up as something called a lytic lesion, and that's our first huge clue. It's really just a medical term for a spot where the bone looks like it's been eaten away, creating this very distinct, well-defined circle. But wait, there's more. Sometimes, inside that circle, you can spot these tiny little flecks of calcium. These flecks give the shadow a kind of mottled or stippled look, almost like a painter just lightly dotted the area with a brush. So, right off the bat, we've got two key visual clues.
Now, any good detective knows you don't just look at the evidence. You also have to build a profile of your suspect. So who typically gets chondroblastoma?
First thing to know is the age. This is overwhelmingly a condition that affects young people. We see most cases pop up in patients between 10 and 20 years old. You know, that time when their skeletons are still growing and maturing.
And the profile gets even more specific. While it can definitely affect anyone in that age range, it turns out that males are affected more often than females. See? The pieces of the puzzle are slowly starting to come together.
So, now we know who we're looking for, we need to ask where. You know how in real estate it's all about location, location, location? Well, it turns out the exact same thing is true for chondroblastoma.
This tumor is picky. It has very specific favorite spots. It almost always appears in the epiphyses. That's the very end of our long bones where a lot of growth happens. And as you can see, its favorite hangouts are the upper arm and the bones right around the knee and the hip. This is no accident. It's a really clear pattern.
And here's a little bit of medical trivia for you. When it shows up in its most common location, the top of the upper arm bone, it sometimes gets a nickname, Codman's tumor, named after the surgeon who first described it. Pretty cool, huh? Okay, the X-ray gives us a really strong suspicion, but to be 100% certain, we have to go deeper. We need to zoom way in and look at the tumor cells themselves, and this is where the pathologist becomes the hero of our story.
And this is where it all connects. The clues from the X-ray, that lytic lesion and the mottled look, they point the pathologist in exactly the right direction. Under the microscope, they're looking for these polyhedral chondroblasts, which are basically the multi-sided, immature cartilage cells making up the tumor, along with a super unique pattern of calcification.
And this, right here, this is the smoking gun. Pathologists see this really specific pattern of calcium deposits that forms around the individual tumor cells. They call it a chicken wire or a picket fence pattern. When they see that, it's a definitive positive ID. Case closed. So we've identified our culprit. The shadow has a name. Now we get to the most important question of all. What do we do about it? Let's talk about the path to recovery.
Thankfully, the treatment is usually very direct and incredibly effective. It's a two-step surgical procedure that involves something called extended curettage and then